Okay, so you all are placing bets on really big, bold things in the market. And before we get started, I'll do quick introductions. So sitting here is Greg Dracon. I knew I was going to mess it up. He's a partner at 406 Ventures, leads the firm investments in companies building innovative solutions aimed at protecting digital assets. I know you have a big cybersecurity background, but also protecting data and infrastructure as well. And then Crystal, general partner at Google Ventures. She invests in AI applications and infrastructure as well. And then at the end over there, we have David Carter, partner at Sapphire. He leads the firm's engineering excellence. If you look at his background, he is an engineer himself. He supports tech leadership within Sapphire's portfolio companies to scale, give strategy guidance, peer learnings, and partner connectivity. So you have a lot of great experts who have hands-on experience in the tech themselves, which I think is really important. All right, so opening question. As we've heard yesterday, and if you listen to any podcast, every industry is talking about how AI is transforming. And the reality is, as we talk to a lot of our clients, we're not quite there yet in terms of value creation with AI. So would love to hear, where are you actually seeing some good examples of where AI has actually brought economies and transformed an industry or a sector? So we can just go down the line. Do you want to start, Greg?
Sure. First, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's great to be here, great content, lots of incredible people I've met. So to answer your question, I think there are a lot of industries. I'll mention one. Financial services, I think, is a perfect one. There's huge data sets, largely clean data. You've got regulatory frameworks that are very prescriptive and digitized workflows that I think it's kind of the shortest distance to actually see a difference with AI. So I'll start with financial services.
Crystal?
Cool. Any vertical where a large percentage of your customer interactions are happening on the phone and maybe follow a structured playbook, such as insurance claims or doctor's offices doing patient intake or home services companies scheduling calls, all of those are seeing adoption of voice agents. And what we're seeing a lot among the companies is that, it's like, imagine having someone to answer your phone 24/7. So an insurance company that we talked to, an insurance software company, said that their clients could take like 25 to 30% more calls. So you don't drop the queries, you talk to every customer, you have a follow-up, and it's really going to drive top line. So voice agents across every vertical. Yeah.
So it sounds like so far frameworks are important, structure's important. You mentioned clean data. David, what else?
I think, there are certain industries that might lend themselves more towards sort of usage of LLMs where they have, lots of unstructured data to kind of sift through or to leverage just as part of their day-to-day. So like the legal industry is a good example. And so, where there's heavy sort of document processing, that's kind of a natural use case. There's other industries like, Greg mentioned, financial services where they've just been using AI for many years already. And so it's sort of like a natural evolution of processes that they already have in place to now embrace Gen AI and start to embed it into their workflows. But I think, despite there being sort of, some pockets of industry specific use cases where we see folks maybe sort of like incrementally ahead of others, it's still down to sort of individual organizations. And it's like about sort of top down mandates to kind of explore and experiment and use these tools and sort of like bottoms up, excitement and exploration of different products and that sort of thing. So I think it's a mix of, there's some industries that are maybe a little bit more adept and ready for the shift, coupled with, it's really sort of a management / kind of cultural thing to get, individual companies up to speed.
Yeah, I think that's a great add and probably a good takeaway for everyone in the room here. Even if they didn't mention your particular industry, it really matters in terms of how leadership's engaging and inspiring people to practice, play with, and use AI differently. All right, so Crystal, most enterprises are applying text-based AI right now. Some are starting to incorporate voice, video. So as you are exploring multimodalities, what are some use cases that you found really interesting?
We've seen already quite a few use cases within sales, marketing, and customer experience. That's where a lot of this has initially happened. I can give you examples of some interesting companies in our portfolio. One is a company called Synthesia, which makes the virtual 3D avatars, so you can do a recording of yourself, do a very quick 1-minute talk track, and it'll generate a lifelike avatar of you that you can script to say basically anything in 140 languages infinitely. And so it's being used for internal L&D, it's being used to create sales and marketing collateral. Pretty soon it'll actually be interactive and actually kind of be something that customers can speak to. And that's driven a lot of automation and scale in the sales and marketing department. Imagine that like content creation is basically infinitely scalable, infinitely translatable. So that's one cool use case. Another that we have is kind of in voice intelligence and coaching. So we have another investment called Reilly, which operates in home services, field services, offline commerce. You take your device, you can record any kind of sales conversation that happens externally or at a customer site or in your store, and it'll use AI to transcribe the call and provide real-time coaching. Like you didn't describe the product correctly, you didn't handle the objection, and their customers in like home services, retail, automotive are seeing pretty big lifts in sales conversion and deal sizes. And so those are two very interesting applications of AI to specific use cases that already have measurable ROI.
Yeah, and actually probably a little bit more comfortable for the person experiencing it because you're not as embarrassed in front of another human as you are when you're interacting with an avatar.
Yeah, but the human is supercharged to convert you though, so
it
can be a little weird.
The reward function.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else have another multimodality example?
I mean, one of the things that we talk about is kind of, there's plenty of multimodal use cases that are kind of pegged to very traditional, like, hey, if you're going to use a phone to interact with a company, that's a multimodal opportunity. You can have a voice agent, you can have a video avatar, whatever it is. But we're starting to see people as well, particularly in sort of like e-commerce and CPG, talk more about, having a kind of like multimodal experience be the digital layer, essentially. So sort of like your front end to the website or your front end to the store, not just for a support use case, but for actual sort of like sales opportunities, is actually some sort of multimodal experience. And so that we see that increasingly becoming sort of like a de facto interface into like any kind of like digital storefront.
All right, Greg, I'm going to pivot to you. So as our cyber expert, we've seen a lot of platformization of cybersecurity over the past few years. As you start to look into the future around AI, do you think there'll be a similar trend?
I'd say yes and no. If you think about cyber specifically, I think platformization has resulted from two big trends. If you kind of rewind 10, 15 years, companies use the best of breed cyber solutions because defenders have to be right 100% of the time. They have to stop everything. Attacker or an adversary needs to be right once. So when new attack surface pops up or new attack vectors emerge, there are companies that pop up to secure that new space. So I think platformization occurred largely because cybersecurity became mainstream. So now every company understands you have to invest in it, apply resources, and they want one throat to choke. And some of these are mid-market companies that don't have the resources to manage 200 tools like a large bank. So platformization is happening largely because of that in cyber, plus the economy, despite the stock market, is actually tough for a lot of companies, so they don't have the resources. In AI, I think it's going to happen even faster, but for a different reason. AI, our thesis in our firm is that a lot of companies are going to build their own apps, small language models, open source models, and to do that, you need a platform. You can't piece things together as a company that doesn't really have like PhDs in AI, so they need tools that lower the bar so you can build things in a more continuous way. So I do think it's going to occur. It's already occurring faster, especially tools for a lot of the folks in the room to use to build their own apps to make their companies more efficient.
Anything that might prevent it from happening at speed?
Security.
Fair.
Models, they're stochastic, probabilistic models. The vulnerabilities change, whether you fine tune them, you change the RAG attached. So if any of you are pushing anything to production, if you haven't had a nation state level red team attack it, whether it's the inference point itself or an application with AI inside of it, please have it really red teamed, because we have yet, the red teams in our group have yet to find a model they can't break. And not break doesn't mean prompt inject and things of that sort. It's get the data in your corporation out of the model itself. So it's going to become a new attack vector. We haven't had any big breaches yet, but that is, in my opinion, all the chief information security officers I talk to, they're putting the brakes on a lot of their companies or slowing things down because it's going to cause a lot of havoc.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and a good reminder that we need to take this seriously in terms of securitization. All right, David, over to you. So as someone who specializes in the engineering domain, how close are we to having a fully autonomous software development lifecycle?
Oh gosh, I think coding certainly steals a lot of the kind of attention, and there's tons of focus around cognition and Claude Code and Cursor and GitHub Copilot. And so it seems like this is one of the, probably the number one enterprise use case in terms of value and sort of, proven impact, at least thus far, in the kind of Gen AI wave. And so coding steals quite a bit of the kind of focus and attention within the DevOps domain. But we really see AI being applied across every phase of the SDLC. So everything from, monitoring the front end of an application to understand real user patterns and sort of leveraging AI to auto-generate requirements off the back of those observations, using AI to enrich requirements, enrich user stories, make sure that they have enough sort of context to, pass along to a developer or to an AI to go and actually efficiently execute a given feature. There's quite a bit happening in the quality testing space, everything from, sort of like the lowest level unit testing all the way to end-to-end testing and using AI to power that. Observability as well, like, AI ops has been sort of a thing that folks have talked about for years, going back to Big Panda and Moogsoft and these companies, but there's a new wave of kind of Gen AI powered solutions in that market as well that are pretty interesting. And so we think we're kind of on the cusp of what will become a kind of fully closed loop autonomous development lifecycle. Not to say that humans won't have some kind of involvement in sort of like steering the agents and steering the execution, but that most of the most common sort of, tasks associated with the life cycle will be able to be automated. And then, I think where we see a lot of the like human-driven engineering focus really heading towards is more around agent development. And so that's sort of the new frontier, the new style of workload. That's kind of, the new, I don't know, it's the microservices of 10 years ago. But so everyone now is focused on AI agents. There's a new sort of associated, what is effectively like a DevOps stack for AI agents. And that's where we see a lot of the human engineering time being spent and sort of engineers transitioning their skill sets to be able to build those effectively. And all of that SDLC tooling effectively becomes like a tool that your agent can use to perform some sort of task. So if one task today is to like generate a front end of a website, like your agent can do that using Cursor, Windsurf, et cetera. But there's a whole other set of use cases, capabilities, functions, et cetera, that agents are building, and that still to us feels like a very much a human-driven kind of like manual exercise today to get right.
So it sounds like, you hear a lot that human jobs are going to get displaced, developers are the thing of yesterday. You're basically saying maybe what they did is different, but there's going to be a lot more as we think about agents in the future where the human is still going to be really important.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else you all would add?
I think human in the loop is going to last for, I think, a while.
Yeah. So any of the naysayers out there, human in the loop. All right. So this is my favorite. This is the lightning round. It's not often we get to hear what you all are thinking every day in your jobs as you're making your investment. So I'll start with this first question, and then all of you can answer it. What is an underrated AI use case that you believe has really big potential?
Want
to go first?
Sure. I like narrow AI, so I'd say industrial for like preventative maintenance, finding anomalies in machines. I think that's going to change how manufacturing runs.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Gen AI and, I think my mic just died. I'd like to see Gen AI and computer use models particularly being applied to next-gen process mining, and no one's pitched me that yet, but I'd like to see it.
Have you seen any startups in that? Right?
No, but it seems like a very natural constraint because many of these startups go to the enterprise, like I have this really cool agent, then they don't know what process to automate, and nor does the customer actually. And so that seems to be a sort of like a barrier to actually getting adoption. That sort of the traditional process mining tools also don't fix in the high degree of automation, and so it seems like an opportunity there. Yeah.
Great. David?
That was going to be mine. I think that's a really good one. But like there's a lot of process execution companies out there that are leveraging Gen AI models to help you do configuration, but the process discovery and kind of mapping bit is still a bit of a gap. I would say maybe one other one is document processing, which, maybe it's not the sexiest thing, or like maybe it's a little bit obvious, but there's been players in that market for many years, like Instabase and Narrative Science and others that have brought it, I think, to a certain point. But now you're seeing kind of agentic document intelligence solutions enter the market, where they can use these sort of recursive loops to ensure that they're actually extracting the right information using OCR and other techniques. And so, document processing just touches a lot of different departments. There's like many, many use cases that it sort of expands into. And so that's one where we're seeing a big kind of uplift in terms of the capability of the document processing tools that are out there.
All right, David, I'm going to stick with you. What is an underrated AI use case that you think is receiving too much attention or funding right now?
You mean overrated?
Did I say under?
I don't know.
Thank you for paying attention.
I just want to be sure.
Yeah, overrated. So where are we putting too much money where you think impact's not going to be there?
I think the vibe coding, it's just kind of like talking about how great coding is and all those use cases. But I think the vibe coding stuff is a little bit, it's a weird duality where on the one hand, you expect that vibe coding will become kind of the default kind of like mode for building applications, or some version of that where it's much more natural language driven. But at least in their current manifestation, a lot of the vibe coding tools, I don't know, we just don't see kind of, as much as there's crazy valuations and companies achieving $100 million revenue in a year building these kind of vibe coding platforms, we're not really seeing those in the enterprise being leveraged to build sort of like mission critical production applications. So it's a little bit of like it's a shot in the arm for the product and design teams, for the domain experts to go and kind of stitch together a basic mock-up, but we don't really see those as the answer to building kind of more mission critical applications.
Crystal, overrated.
Yeah, I think AI agent builder companies, so I think we've all seen products where you can drag and drop different automations. It's sort of like a flow. I probably see one of those every week that's like, we can help you build your own agent. But I think we've already established the hard part is understanding what the process is.
Yeah.
And so many of these companies, have a cool UI and like customers don't know how to use it and don't know how to start. But that doesn't stop VCs from funding them, so.
Greg, round us out.
I would say chat anything. There are a lot of companies. A lot of companies are just putting a chat interface on whatever they do, and that's AI-ifying. Doesn't mean you're using AI to its full advantage.
Yeah.
And companies still get funded. To Crystal's point, just because they call themselves AI doesn't make them AI. There's a lot more power.
That was one of my big takeaways yesterday. Like, we're not doing enough to reimagine. We're just AI-ifying what already exists, and how do you prompt
100%.
some of the reimagine?
Yep.
All right, so we'll go back this way again, just to be consistent. What is the biggest challenge that you see AI startups facing over the next 12 months?
I would say proving ROI.
Yeah.
I think a lot of tire kicking is happening now. Companies are trying many tools, and the CIOs and CAIOs I speak with are not yet seeing the value, to David's point. So we're going to have to see, how does that ROI change to maintain stickiness?
You're setting us up for our next panel, actually does touch on ROI, so we'll see what they have to say. But Crystal.
So that's a good one. I think the other, at least we're seeing among startups and mid-stage companies, is just the war for talent, because there's still a pretty scarce and finite pool of really good AI engineers and people who know how to apply that to different verticals. And now those people are distributed among thousands of startups instead of a few larger companies. And so the salary expectations, the lack of loyalty, like we see people working at 3 jobs for 6 months and leaving, like that's a challenge. Yeah.
David?
I think one of the ones that we think about a lot is the foundational labs. Like they can be sort of a friend and a foe. And so it's, on the one hand, startups have this dependency where they need to wait for kind of like the next gen, the next model family to release to achieve some new capability or improve their existing capabilities, or to lower costs because the version of the model they're on now is suddenly 80% cheaper, whatever it is. And then juxtaposed to, at any point, we were talking about this last night, but at any point Anthropic or OpenAI can just sort of point their scope on some niche software domain and try to kind of take out the startups that are playing there. So it's a little bit of a kind of love-hate with the foundational labs, and it's an interesting dynamic that we're going to see play out, I think.
All All right, Crystal, I'm going to start with you this time. Where do you get your AI news? How do you stay on top of what's happening in the tech world?
It's pretty unoriginal, but I just read a lot of Twitter. And
Yeah?
kind of like Aaron Levy said yesterday, if you just follow tons and tons of AI researchers and founders and influencers, eventually your feed just starts to curate down to only AI content. And so that's been pretty good.
Does anyone have a non-X or Twitter answer between Greg and Dave?
Yeah, at a high level, I think Axios AI does a decent job for kind of industry trends, and then Ben's Bytes is a really
haven't heard
good
of Ben's
product-centric
Okay.
AI blog. So,
David?
I watch a lot of YouTube kind of nerdy videos about people like experimenting with different tools and frameworks and stuff like that. Honestly, I think just getting out and doing some experimentation yourself, like regardless of how kind of technical you are or how, close you are to the R&D team in terms of your day-to-day is really, really valuable just to kind of understand the state of, what the models can do and what they excel at, what they can't do, et cetera.
All right. Every VC has a one that got away. David, what was your one company that got away that you regret not investing in?
Yeah, I think we've been hesitant. There's a lot of capital. It's very capital intensive to invest in a foundational model. And so, that was something that I think, at least early on, we were pretty apprehensive about, and to some extent still are. But, if we had the, hindsight's 2020, and if we had had the sort of understanding of where a company like Anthropic might wind up, that might be one that I would put on the list of would have been good. But it just very hard to predict, 2 years ago that they would kind of rise to the top.
Crystal?
I hosted the founder of CoreWeave at a dinner, and he was raising at a $2 billion valuation, and now it's a $67 billion market cap company, like 2 years later. So, yeah.
we're not recording, right? No. How much time do we have? I could go through a lot.
Give me one.
I thought I'd pick one that most people in the room would actually recognize the name of, because so many of our companies people don't know. Waze. If any have used Waze, which Google bought.
I mean, who hasn't used Waze? I hope.
Yes, not many people use it now in our discussion last night, but the founder of Waze was at one of the companies I was on the board of. When he left, I heard the pitch. We're enterprise investors. It was a consumer app. Did not move forward, and that was a mistake in hindsight.
All right, well, on a positive note, what is one company in your portfolio that everyone in this room should know about? Go ahead, Greg, you start.
I think I'd pick MindGuard, just to stick with the security theme. It's a company that does continuous and automated red teaming of AI. They find shadow AI, so they'll identify everything in your org that's using AI. They help assess it for vulnerabilities, and then they can inform what type of guardrails to use to make sure you don't have a data breach.
Mechanical Orchard, it's a company started by the founding team of Pivotal Software. They're using AI to modernize mainframes.
Awesome.
I would go with Sierra. They're a end-to-end data security company doing data posture management, DLP, and now expanding into kind of cyber for AI with AI firewalling and AI posture management and that sort of thing. So really, really interesting company in the kind of data security space.
Well, thank you all for all that you're doing and investing in the next gen to keep us moving forward in the AI world. If anyone has a question or wants to connect with someone on the panel, just reach out to one of the Deloitte people and we'll make sure we'll get you their contact information. But thank you all so much for being here.